In most royal scandals, the ruler is the predator. But in this palace, the emperor was not the most dangerous person. The woman he chose was dead before sunrise, not because she had done anything wrong, because the empress found out he wanted her. The woman behind it was Dugu Qieluo, the empress who refused to share an emperor. In ancient China, an emperor's desire was law. He could fill a palace with women. But Dugu made one rule impossible to break. Even the emperor's bed had to obey her. And when he broke that rule, everyone expected the empress to fall. Instead, the emperor fled his own palace at midnight. But the rule that broke him had been written long before he ever became emperor. Before Yang Jian wore a crown, before anyone called him emperor, a 14-year-old girl made him swear. That girl was Dugu, no other woman. No child with anyone but me. To Yang Jian, it was a promise made to a girl. To Dugu, it was the first law of an empire she had not yet entered, because she already knew what unchecked power could do. Her father had been destroyed in a political purge. Her family name had become dangerous overnight. So Dugu did not ask love to save her. She asked for control. 24 years. That is how long Yang Jian kept his promise. By 581, the man who had once been a young noble in a fractured land declared himself Emperor Wen of Sui, founder of a new dynasty after centuries of division. The private vow he made as a boy walked into the palace with him, and beside him stood the girl who had made him swear before any of it existed. Dugu watched the harem. In an imperial harem, one pregnancy could become a faction. One prince could become a rival bloodline. So she did not treat the harem like romance. She treated it like a warning, and Yang Jian was about to ignore it. The moment came when Dugu was away. For years, Yang Jian had lived inside her rule. Then he saw a young palace woman, and he crossed the line. To him, perhaps, it was only one night. To Dugu, it was a crack in the wall. Yes, there was jealousy, but jealousy was only the surface. What frightened her was not beauty. It was what beauty could become: a pregnancy, a faction, a rival bloodline. The palace would whisper, the ministers would calculate, the old rules would return. Dugu did not ask for loyalty. She enforced it. Before Yang Jian returned, the young woman was gone. One night broke the promise. One morning turned it into law. Yang Jian was still the emperor. But in that moment, the palace did not move around him. It moved around Dugu. So the man who could make an empire kneel fled his own palace because of his wife. The minister Gao Zhong found him and brought him back. Then Gao Zhong said the words Dugu would never forget. Would your majesty abandon the empire for one woman? The palace survived, the marriage survived, but Dugu remembered those two words, one woman. Gao Zhong saved the emperor that night. But with two words, he made himself Dugu's next target. Dugu did not shout, she did not strike back, but she knew who had said it first. Gao Zhong was the kind of minister even an emperor needed. One of the architects of the early Sui state. Dugu could not pull down a man like that with anger. She needed a crack he made himself. Then fate handed her one. Gao Zhong's wife died. Dugu suggested the emperor choose a new wife for him. Gao Zhong refused. He said he was old. He said he had no wish to marry again. A few months later, his concubine gave birth to a son. Now Dugu had what she needed. He had told the emperor he wanted no woman, while hiding a woman and a child at home. She placed the matter before Yang Jian. If a man lies about his own house, how can he be trusted with the empire? In 599, Gao Zhong was removed from office. The man who called her one woman was dragged down by that one woman. Gao Zhong was gone. But Dugu's real problem was not the man beside the throne. It was the man who would sit on it next. By her later years, Dugu was no longer protecting her marriage. She was protecting what would survive after her. Her eldest son, Yang Jian, had been crown prince since the founding of Sui. His position looked unshakable, but his palace was full of women, luxury, and noise. One concubine had borne him several children, including his eldest son. In Dugu's eyes, he was becoming everything she had spent her life fighting. A man ruled by appetite, a future emperor who would reopen every gate she had closed. Then there was her second son, Yang Jian. Yang Jian understood his mother better than anyone. When Dugu visited, his wife stood beside him. The rooms were clean. The women she hated were nowhere in sight. He dressed simply. He bowed carefully. He looked disciplined, loyal, and pure. One son looked like the old chaos. The other looked like the answer Dugu had spent her life building. The perfect heir was standing right in front of her. The problem was he was acting. Yang Jian did not fight her rules. He studied them. She wanted a good husband, so he showed her one. She wanted a clean heir, so he cleaned the stage before she arrived. She wanted obedience, so he performed it perfectly. With powerful allies, accusations against Yang Jian piled up. In 600, Yang Jian was deposed and confined. Yang Jian became the new heir. This was Dugu's greatest victory. Her rule had moved from marriage to the harem to the court, and finally to the succession. But Yang Jian was not her answer. He was the first person who learned how to perform the answer. History would remember him as Emperor Yang of Sui, one of China's most infamous rulers. But for Dugu, he was the son who turned her greatest victory into her final mistake. Dugu died in 602. Yang Jian was devastated. 2 years later, on his deathbed, the emperor finally saw what Yang Jian had been hiding. A young consort came to him in tears, with an accusation against Yang Jian the dying emperor could no longer dismiss. The Book of Sui says Yang Jian struck the bed and cried, "Dugu ruined me." But Dugu had been dead for 2 years, so the story became easy to write. A jealous empress, a wrong heir, a dynasty that deserved to fall. People remembered the verdict. They forgot what she had actually done. She closed the harem gates. She dragged down a powerful minister. She changed who would inherit the empire. So did Dugu destroy the dynasty? Or did history simply need a woman to blame? History has a habit of calling powerful women jealous, but jealousy alone does not change an empire. Maybe what frightened them was not that Dugu wanted too much love. Maybe it was that she wanted control over marriage, over the harem, over bloodline, over the future. She made an emperor keep one promise for a lifetime. History remembered only 2 words: jealous empress. But maybe the real question is this: when a man wants control, history calls him a ruler. When a woman wants control, why does history call her a monster?